You've reached Conversation with Mr.A. This is your host, Anthony Apostilla. Thank you for listening. Let's get right to the episode. Welcome to Conversations with Mr.A. This is your host, Anthony Apostilla. So it is my pleasure for this afternoon to have Mr. John Norlin from Character Strong. He is the co-founder. For those of you who don't know, Character Strong is a curriculum that's used in schools, elementary, middle, and high schools to teach social emotional learning. Thank you so much, John, for being here.
Yeah, it's great to be here and fun to do this at the conference and to meet you and get a chance to talk more.
John, what inspired you to co-found Character Strong?
Yeah, well, it was always, I think something that might have been different for us is the original goal was not to start a business. It was actually to serve the work. And that started in the classroom. So I was a classroom teacher for over a decade. And then I worked at the district level where I was serving all the schools in our district around what we now do at Character Strong. And one of the initial reasons for Character Strong was that And nowadays, whether we call it social emotional learning or life skills or future ready, right, depending on the state, depending on the area, right, different terms are more acceptable. But what we knew was there was a lot of offerings at the elementary level. There was some at the middle school level, but one of the biggest problems was that it felt elementary. What was, back then offered, and there was almost nothing offered at the high school level. And we knew it wasn't just elementary students that needed this work. It wasn't just middle school and or high school that we even as adults needed. But our first focus was actually on the older students and providing something that would be relevant, that felt like it was designed for a middle or high school student, right, by middle and high school students. Because if it's not relevant to them, good luck. Students don't benefit from something they don't receive. And so that's actually where we started, and we became known quicker because we were serving that group, and there wasn't a lot in that space. Then people that loved it were saying, our elementary schools are now wondering, what do you got for them? And so that's kind of a part of the origin story was to bring this work to more than just elementary students.
How did you come to that realization?
Well, it was from being in the classroom, right? So I taught a full load of leadership classes, which really was an elective course of what we do now school-wide, and seeing firsthand the need for it. The business community knows how much it's needed. Families know how much it's needed. And the older students get, the more we realize it takes a village, right? That you could say the same thing, right? Absolutely. From a trusted mentor in a different space, whether that be in athletics or in music or fill in the blank, whatever a student's interested in. But the same person saying it that's different than maybe the parent or different that can get through, right? And so they needed that messaging, and just seeing that kids were actually at the middle and high school level, they wanted it. They wanted to do hard things, and how much it was needed, I think was, where it was started was from firsthand experience.
Now, how would you describe Character Strong, especially to maybe some of our listeners who may not be familiar with it, know about it? How would you describe it to a newcomer?
Yeah, I'll try to say in really simple terms. Here would be an example. If students don't come to school, they have a tough time learning, right? So what are we doing to create an environment where students want to show up or have more incentive to show up, right? If students aren't engaged in a classroom, right? They're not actually interested in it because they don't have a connection either to the teacher or the other students in the room or the content, they're going to have a tough time learning. If a student shows up and is anxious, emotionally dysregulated, they're going to have a hard time learning. If they don't feel like they're a part of the community that is the school, they're going to have a hard time learning. So a way of looking at Character Strong is we help to create the foundational environment where students actually, all students, not just those that are the highest achieving, but that they have an opportunity to actually be successful and learn. A lot of times people need to see that direct connection to the academic side. So in school, you have all the academic stuff, and then on the other side, we might call it the behavioral side. Character Strong serves that entire behavioral side. So one, what are we doing for all students in all classrooms, right? That's what we would call tier one. It's universal. What are we doing to ensure that everyone's getting a certain amount of instruction and or community building and or teaching of basic life skills that we know are going to help them to be successful? Then in every school building, there's always some students who need more supports. What you're doing full school-wide is not enough. So for those students, what do we have to be more specific to help them, either if it's a skill issue, how can we improve those skills? Or if it's a motivation issue, how can we help that through intervention? So we have resources that can help some students in every school that need more. And then the last part is there's always a few students who need much more intensive supports around behavior. And a lot of times these are students who might have so many needs or big needs that they're taking up 80% of the time of a school, whether it be the administration or the teachers, right? And that can be disruptive to the other students who are also trying to learn. So what are we doing to serve those students so that they can be more successful and also help the learning environment where all students can learn versus just get them out, right? Which is not a healthy answer, right? But it also isn't healthy if they keep disrupting the learning environment. And is that fair for all the students who, and so what can we do to equip educators who feel outmatched a lot of times by behaviors? And so helping school systems with not only what's happening at a classroom level, but what's happening at a school-wide level and even what's happening at a district-wide systems level, that's what we do. So you've got the academic curricula, and then on the behavioral side, we have all of those solutions that all point to helping academics, right? Helping students to be more successful. And also, there's also a direct connection. How do we create more safe schools? And this is a direct, connection to that. The work that we do is helps to create more safe schools. We can get all the metal detectors in the world, but what about the actual social side, which a lot of times is what drives students either to self-harm, right, or to potentially have not positive thoughts or unhealthy towards that. It's the more on the social, emotional side that can create that.
Was it difficult for you to get it off the ground running? Because one thing that I've kind of learned is the buy-in is important. Getting buy-in from stakeholders, from staff, administrators. Was it hard to kind of get their buy-in at first?
Yeah, the collective. I would say yes, like anything else. But one of the things I think that we did right is that we moved slow to move fast. We tried to stay under the radar as long as we could and just do it right, which means instead of just putting fluff out there to try to get people's attention, let's give really quality stuff. If you want to be really effective in quote at marketing, what's the number one way to be effective at marketing? It's to know your customer. Well, what made us really strong throughout our time of starting Character Strong even till now is the vast majority of people that work at Character Strong actually came from the work. They were classroom educators or counselors or administrators. So when you know what is needed because you have your ear to the ground and you're connected to it, you're more likely to produce resources where people are like, that's quality. And that's what we always try to do. Give, 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 give. And to the point where people are like, your free stuff is better than the paid stuff that we have over here in this other organization. Imagine what your paid version looks like. And that was always one of our goals, is to serve the work well and give more than ask. And that helped us a lot. But that was hard.
How do you feel like Character Strong has evolved since it started? How long has it been since it started?
Gosh, we're probably getting close to 10 years now.
Okay.
So coming up on a decade. Of course, the work started before that, but officially, right, as an organization. And we've evolved in many ways. I mean, we've all lived through a pandemic. Mm-hmm. And there was a lot of evolving and adapting that happened. And that was one of the keys to our growth, was how much we were able to adapt to meet the needs. An example I always give is we fully adapted our curricula to work virtually in 2 months. So it was designed to be in-person instruction. In 2 months, took over 200 and some odd lessons and adapted it to work virtually. Some of our competitors 2 years later still had not been able to do that. So in 2 months, we pulled that off. And so we've adapted in a lot of ways by continuously having a focus of always updating, always improving, never-ending process. So if we don't update the content and the curricula, especially the video content, that's the world that students live in. If you're not updating it every 1 to 2 years, I always joke, it looks like a 1990s VHS tape. Because students' world is all about updating, content. That's their world, right? So to stay relevant, we always are having to get feedback, update our content. And so because of that, naturally, you evolve. You evolve a lot.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense. What advice would you give to educators or leaders trying to create a more intentional, relational, or character-driven culture?
Yeah, there's a lot of different things here to keep it at a high level. One, it's understanding that as much as we're trying to serve students and the focus goes there, ultimately the success of this, it's all about the adults. So to move slow to move fast, it's focus on the adults first. What readiness work do we need to do with the adults in a building or in the district to get ready to actually implement this? And so many times people move too quickly there, or they say, we're going to do this because we said so, and they don't get that buy-in. So it's understanding that implementation science says that it takes 3 to 5 years. So in that 3 to 5 years, it starts with doing the readiness work before you even get into an initial implementation, right? Before you can then get to actually ongoing fidelity, but it's give it time. And in education, we're really good at saying this too shall pass. So we bring something in, didn't work in 9 months. So we're like, well, I guess that didn't work. And there's zero research to back up that it's supposed to work in 1 year. So we have to have a plan that's beyond 1 year, and that takes leadership. We have to think through systems. So systems over goals. We can all have the goal of wanting to have something like this work, but what's the system we're going to put in place to actually deliver it, to get feedback, right? To recognize staff for the victories that they're doing. We have to think more like a business in many ways of how we're rolling it out and put the systems in place.
I'm wondering when you're maintaining, the business, the company, I'd imagine it's a lot of work. How do you personally keep yourself grounded, in your mission, especially in these difficult seasons?
Yeah, I would say there's a big difference between happiness and purpose.
Okay.
Right? We live in a world where if you ask the average typical human being today, what do you want most in life? Still to this day, one of the number one answers is, I just want to be happy. Mm-hmm. And I always say, or ask, how are we doing with that? And collectively, we're not doing very good with the idea of happiness, right? I think it's because we've been sold a bill of goods, which is like, I keep thinking that what I'm going to do is going to make me happy, but it doesn't. Well, what if we flipped it? What if it was purpose is greater than happiness? And one of the things that purpose doesn't falsely promise is that it's always going to feel good. And so one of the ways that I'm able to stay grounded in a time like this is staying connected to my purpose. And that went all the way back to being a classroom teacher. How do you work through difficult times? Stay connected to your purpose, which does not tell you it's always going to be easy or feel good. In fact, when times are hard and you have your purpose that's strong, then you're able to work through it more. Doesn't mean that it's easy, right? But that's how I've been able to do it for years. And still to this day, although growing Character Strong has been hard work, the hardest job I ever had was a classroom teacher. I never worked harder than when I was a student activities coordinator, leadership teacher at the high school level. It was 16 to 20 hour days. And still the greatest job I ever had was a high school classroom teacher, right? So now I always joke, even though it's hard, like this is easy compared to that. But now it's serving from the background. What can we be doing to more equip educators that are serving students every day, or administrators that are serving staff and students every day, and families? And that now is the purpose. It's serving the work just like we did. It's just in a different environment. So that's what helps me to stay grounded during difficult times.
That's awesome. I'm just wondering, personally for yourself, what does living a character strong life mean to you on a personal level?
Oh, I love it. It goes kind of to where the root of how we got our name. So there's a great old servant leadership model from James C. Hunter, and at the bottom of the model, it talks about the equations of the will. Intentions minus actions equals squat, which I love that leadership quote, right? We can have all the great intentions in the world, but if we don't actually do anything, it doesn't equal a lot, right?
Absolutely.
Flip it though, intentions plus actions equals my will. And the plus and the minus actually represent the exact same thing, which is a choice. And so where Character Strong got its name is every time we align our intentions with our actions, it's like taking a rep on your character muscle. So what does it mean to live a Character Strong life? It's about being intentional, about putting your character into action, right? And every time we take that, lift that weight, we become more Character Strong. What I love about Character Strong or living that life is that you never arrive. It's a never-ending process, right? People ask me, and I'll say, I'm a terrible listener, but I'm way better than I was 15 years ago. It's a never-ending process, right? And so, and the big part too is like, well, why do we work on that? Well, we don't work on improving our character muscle for when everything is going our way. Anybody can be who they want to be, the ideal version of themselves, when everything is going their way. There's no challenge in that. But what about when, and you can give also, but what about when the poop hits the fan?
Yep.
I used to tell that to my student leaders. I'm like, think about that for a moment. They're like, yeah. I'm like, there is nothing good about the moment or like the visual of poop hitting a fan. It doesn't smell good. It doesn't taste good. It doesn't feel, there's nothing good. Who are you then? And that's why we work on our character muscle, because when the adversity hits, who am I then? And our will, right, the ability to make choices is like a muscle. And if I don't work on it, right, I'm not going to have the muscle, the will, the ability to make that choice to be patient when I don't feel like it, or to make the right choice when it's inconvenient. And so when we think about what is the implications of that in the world that we're in, they're big, right? Absolutely. And so I was talking in a session at the conference that we're at right now, and we were talking about, who knows that this work is important, that will help fund it? The business community. the business community collectively knows that they're spending millions of dollars every year trying to teach adults this stuff that don't have it. So they're like, if we could get it at a younger age, it'd be way more effective in terms of the business strategy. And they absolutely love supporting this work because they know what that's not coming to them is what they call the soft skills, right?
Yeah.
What we say, those are not soft, those are hard skills. Right, those are real skills.
Speaking of soft skills, I remember the session. There was a session yesterday. For listeners who don't know, John had a great ending session yesterday, and you shared a really good story about your high school experience with your friend, and I was very touching. I was just wondering for our listeners if you could share that story, because that was really moving to me.
Yeah, it's going to be a longer story. I'll give you the short version. But
absolutely,
I was a pretty indifferent kid. That really didn't have any connection to my school. That was my apathy. I just it didn't care about me. I didn't care about it. And because of a student who intentionally reached out, introduced himself, got me connected, I then got more involved. Met a teacher who was really influential that later made me want to be a teacher. But what made him such a great teacher is he gave me opportunities, and instead of telling me what to do, he asked tough questions that got me thinking. And through that process, I ended up standing at the front door of my high school for every day of my entire senior year and just greeted students and staff. And that experience still to this day is, I learned more about leadership in that 180 days than any other time period in my life. And through the relationships and the connections that I made during that time, my whole life changed. It's where I decided what I wanted to do. And when you say, how do I stay grounded? That purpose, that's where I really feel like it started. I'm sure it was before that, but my pivotal moment was the greeting at the door, meeting Aaron Dempsey at the door, who was a student who taught me more than probably anybody else in my life in terms of a peer, and the impact that had. So that's the quick version of the story,
awesome,
but it was a lot of powerful things that came from it.
It's great. It's great. Okay, a few more things. So for Character Strong, what do you see next for Character Strong coming up?
Yeah, our goal is to become a one-stop shop for the MTSS that we talk about, the multi-tiered system of support on the behavior side, because schools don't want to go 12 places. It's discombobulated, right? So what if I could go to one place that has all of that tier 1, what are we doing for all? Tier 2, what are we doing for some that need more? Tier 3, what are we doing for the few that need much more intensive? But then bringing in the assessment piece, how do we know that it's actually working? Right, so being able to do pre and post, and then not only get the data, but then it tells me what I could do, the action, assessment to action. Our goal and what's next is to become a one-stop shop for a school or district so that we can be a trusted partner that can help in any of those areas, that in a system and platform that actually talks to itself versus having 6 different things that we do.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
The last piece, and this is a fun one, I like to call this word association. So what I'm going to do is, and this is just more relaxed and fun, is I'm going to give like a random word or phrase, and you just tell me the first thing that comes to mind. Now, the running joke here with the podcast, people have known this for years, is for myself, I absolutely despise pickles. I think they're the worst thing in the world. So, what's the first thing that comes to mind when you think of pickles?
Pickles, the lunch line that we just went through, but there was the great conversations that I was having with educators who are giving up time during their summer to prepare for the next school year and serve students.
Okay. Yeah. How about sports cars?
Sports cars? A movie that I just watched. What was it? F1 or whatever. And there was a lot of sports cars in it. I don't know. Brad Pitt. Good actor.
Okay. All right. Horror movies.
Oh my gosh. Horror movies. One of my co-founders, Houston Kraft, lives down in California, and he has a property that in the past they filmed many horror films, both low level and big, famous ones, on this property, because he lives in the closest part outside Los Angeles that doesn't look like Los Angeles. And so anytime I go to his property, I kind of get freaked out because it looks like a horror film, and they filmed a bunch of horror films on his property.
God, you can only imagine.
Yeah, before he owned it, they filmed. It was a good site for that. Yeah.
Okay, flip a little bit. How about romantic movies?
Oh gosh, Serendipity. I love Serendipity,
okay.
The movie. John Cusack. I don't know. I just love that. I guess I'm not a big romantic comedy guy, but that's one that comes to mind.
Yeah, no worries. Rap music.
Oh goodness. So my son, he has an uncle. So my wife and her brother, his uncle, grew up here in Tacoma, Washington, and his uncle knows so much about rap. music, like the history of it, deep understanding of it, and has taught my son that. So my son is so into that he teaches me every day about like not just the mute, but like what's behind it, everything from what's the riffs going on and people dissing who, but like I've learned to really appreciate it at a level that I never did growing up. And so right now Kendrick Lamar is his favorite, and he just teaches. I mean, he won a Pulitzer Prize for his ability to write, and so you just learn about that. So I've really enjoyed through my son learning so much more about rap music, its origins, and even current, like so much about it. So it's been a lot of fun. That's all I hear in the car when he runs the music right now. Yeah.
How about body odor?
Body odor. Middle school students.
I can only imagine. Yeah. I work with them right now, right. So yes, I do. So. Yeah. How about rude people?
Rude people. Here's the first thought that comes to mind. It comes from Dr. Clayton Cook. It's the quote, "There's always a reason for every behavior." It's easy for me to either see what I don't like or even judge that person must be rude, but what if I flipped it? What if I flipped that thought to there's always I wonder, instead of like, what's wrong with you? You're so rude. What if I thought, what's going on with you? What's happening with you that's causing you to, and it might have caused me to have more empathy for that person.
That's good. Yeah. That's good. One more. How about love?
Love. Taught an entire leadership class with a servant leadership model. We're at the root. The core of it was love. And so my final answer that could be an entire semester, I could teach on this right now, is that when we understand that you can love someone and not even like them, now you're starting to understand what real love is. And in the English language, we've been cheated because they only gave us one word for love. You go to other languages like Greek, right? And they've got multiple words for love, like storge and philos and eros, but they also have one called agape. And agape is unconditional, deliberate choice love. And I think we need more of that love in this world. Not feelings-based love. I'll treat you well or love you if I feel like it, but instead choice-based. I'm going to treat you with love even when I don't necessarily feel like it.
That's deep. Yeah. That's deep. Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, John. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Now I'm going right.
And that concludes this edition of Conversations with Mr. A, featuring Mr. John Norlin from Character Strong. I can definitely tell you within those 20 minutes, I learned a lot. Just the way he spoke about reaching out to students, staff, school staff, and just his viewpoints on youth in general. It was really, really an awesome experience. And what was really cool was right after this interview podcast, I think I said in the introduction, he's actually the host of the Character Strong podcast as well. And right after this one, he did his podcast with another guest as well right afterwards. So the timing was amazing. So definitely a wonderful experience. Learned a lot about Character Strong. Character Strong is a social emotional learning tool that we use in the schools, and I use that for my job. And so it was just a pleasure to have the interview with the co-founder and director of the program. So thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed it. Hopefully we'll have some new episodes coming up soon. Stay tuned. Take care.